This episode is brought to you by Radio Mastery. Radio Mastery helps radio professionals to dominate their market and reach number one. Apply today at radiomastery.com.au. And joining me from Radio Mastery is Peter Samios, radio consultant and coach, to discuss the recent GFK Survey 4 results. Welcome back to Biz Audio.
Be here on such a momentous day. I know that when the world travels, when people move around the globe, such as yourself, still stops on ratings day. So it's good that we're still having this chat. So I'm very pumped to get into it.
Absolutely. And starting off with, I think, my favorite topic to discuss, Kiss 1065. My goodness. As we both predicted, the flaw wasn't in survey 3.
Why there were some real heavyweight professionals saying that they've hit the floor, that this, and they were jumping for joy last survey. Oh, is this as worse as it's going to be? No, yeah, what on what planet did they think that was the worst? Don't they remember when Kyle and Jack went over to Kiss from Today? That similar thing. It wasn't just a one hit and one blow KO. No, Today FM slowly. I think it took three or so surveys. I might be wrong, but I remember it did take a while for them to hit rock bottom. So we're going to see this flow on effect. I think maybe even next survey. I don't think they're done yet. I do not think that 6.6 is the lowest that we'll see Kiss 1065 at.
Wow. I'm looking at it right now, and it's quite early in the morning for me. um, Wow, 6.6, and then we also have minus -0.8 for 2 GB. That's, I mean, 2 GB has been jumping around like crazy. If we look at some more day parts for KISS 1065, we've got -0.7 for mornings, -1.4 for afternoons, and then Will and Woody at Drive haven't performed the best, but there's not too many other big drops, such as afternoons, but breakfast took the biggest hit for Kiss. If we look at over at Gold 1017, geez, they've had a shocker survey as well.
Thing for this whole book is it's not ARM's day, and you'll see that trend going across other markets as well. Definitely with the gold thing, I remember I did say I don't think Christian will work in Sydney, and yes, he had a spike last survey. I he's I remember a few surveys ago I said Christian will not be pulling the figures that Jonesy and Amanda were achieving at Gold 101.7. The only solution ARN have is they've got their last saving grace being Jonesy and Amanda in Sydney. Throw them back into breakfast. I've said this to you in the past. Put them in breakfast. Play the best of at Drive around the country. It won't make a difference to the survey results at Drive because it's new content to those listeners outside of Sydney. But Jonesy and Amanda need to get back into 101.7 breakfast ASAP to rescue ARN and also rescue gold in Sydney.
Absolutely. I just think it was an interesting decision. And even Nova followed in putting a heritage breakfast show in Drive, switching it around. So yeah, I totally agree with you there.
With Nova, though, the difference we saw at Nova 96.9 is that they were two strong shows, strong and established shows. That I believe that the Fitzy, Whipper, and Kate and the Ricky, Tim, and Joel audience, there was quite a bit of overlap. So by swapping those two around, it wasn't as bad as some may have thought. It's the same listeners, just they wake up with their drive show and they go drive home with their breakfast show. So that's why Nova has dodged a bit of a bullet here. And the best part for Nova, as we see in the results with them, they've got the heritage shows in Sydney. They are the shows that people enjoy. They know Ricky Lee and Tim. They know Fitzy Whipper and Kate. So you can see by the results there, as I said last survey, Nova's going to enjoy the rewards of Kyle and Jackie O leaving the market. By default, Apple has left, Samsung has taken over. That's what we're seeing here at Nova.
Absolutely. And look, I think it's just a time game to see how long it'll take for the whole Carl and Jackie O audience to find a new home. Of course, it won't be the exact same as, Kyle and Jackie O, but I think that there's no real alternative. I think, as you said in previous chats, if they had a heritage breakfast show like Jonesy and Ahmed is still on breakfast, or with Fitzy, Whipper, and Kate, there would be some more options. But yeah, I think it was all a time game here.
Today FM's results as well. If you cannot win this far into not having Kyle and Jack in market, they've got a lot of problems on hand. But I must say, I do love their latest tactic, flick the switch. I know they've got their national commitments. They're doing another $1 million, whatever it is, $1 million voice or something. I think that they need to run with this flick the switch. And essentially, what they're doing is if you listen, the longer that you listen, if you can get a friend to listen as well, you get more money out of Today FM. I think that's brilliant, but it's about 2 months too late. So they really should have jumped on this kind of aggressive tactic from the get go because Today FM have clearly missed the boat. Like I said, without Kyle and Jack in market, anyone would assume, oh, great, it's Today FM's day. Well, it's not. And why? That's the big question. Why aren't people flocking back to Today FM after deserting them 13 years ago, whenever it was? They should be going back to Today FM, but they're not. They're going to Nova.
So, do you think more people are just turning off their radios in general now, and after Carl and Jackie have left?
To the pie has gotten smaller. Those 12 shares that we saw at Kiss, a lot of them are waiting for Kyle's podcast platform to come up. So very smart for Kyle, but very sad for radio. And just one more thing I want to say about the Sydney market. If you want to put a bit of if you're a numbers person, um, I think it's quite interesting. Who had the biggest growth at breakfast? It was SEN and Sky Sports Radio. Does that mean that they left Kiss 1065 and went to sport? I don't think so, but it's a really cool statistic to run with.
Absolutely. Well, looking over at Melbourne, I've got to say, Nova had some big gains here. I was surprised by that. And of course, Gold 1043 dropped in Brekkie. Really big drops. What do you think of that?
Spot in Melbourne is the Fox. I would like to see the Fox get up there again as strong as they can, and it's great to see that they've had a good result in Brekkie. Nova again. Nova's had its day, which is great. Seeing the results of the demise of any last minute people that still hadn't left Kiss 101.1 have now left now, and they've come across to either the Fox or to Nova. Look, yeah, in terms of the gold results in Melbourne, I don't think that's a trend. I think that's a one-off. I do believe Christian can still do quite well in Melbourne. It is a very strong station there in Melbourne, so I wouldn't be too worried about the results there at Gold. It's the fact that its work days are still quite strong. I think we'll see that bounce back with Christian there. In my view, Melbourne. I mean, remove 3AW. We'll get to that in a moment. But outside of 3AW, it does bounce around a fair bit. Between Nova, Gold, and I suppose you could probably include Smooth in that mix as well, and the Fox. They do sort of jump around like we see in Brisbane with those top two or three stations. So I think I wouldn't be too worried about the Gold results in Melbourne. But just getting to 3AW though, a 20, over 20%. Listen to Ross and Russ at breakfast. I think that is in a market as cluttered as Melbourne. That is a phenomenal result. You are on 20.1. Your nearest competition is a music station at 10.4. Your nearest talk station would be the ABC at 5.3. You're at 20.1. They're at 5.3 at breakfast. That is exceptional for 3AW. Whatever they are doing, I wish they could just sprinkle some love to some of the FM stations there.
I wish they could replicate that in Brisbane with 4BC, but we'll touch on Brizzy in a second. But my goodness, 3AW 20, over 20 share. And you rarely see that in a Metro breakfast. It's usually in regional.
Is look, they give it to Jackie at Drive over her results. She's achieved a 9.4. That is still very strong in Melbourne. Very strong. It's just you're comparing a 9.4 up against a 20.1. Yeah, cut her a bit of slack. That's still very impressive. So well done to everyone at 3AW and SEN as well. They've held it. They've grown slightly as well, but keep in mind it is AFL season. So let's see. Hopefully they can retain as much of that audience come the closure of the AFL season.
Of course. And looking over at Brizzy, my goodness, Triple M loss. Wow, what do you think of that? People 10 plus minus 3.3. What do you think's going on?
I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think with Triple M, I think they'll that bounces around. My main concern for or two things I've noticed in Brisbane. Well done to Kiss Brisbane. I think getting up again. I can see that Robin, Kip, and Corey have just gone past Nova Brisbane, which is a great result for them. But also the big thing in Brisbane is look at the 4BC results. I'd be really concerned at Tapped Media. Yes, you are the only commercial AM talk station in Brisbane, but is it really? I've said it in the past. I do feel there is a need for it. I just don't know if that's the right lineup for it. And they do keep chopping and changing and going a bit hard, more hard newsy, and then they go a bit more lifestyle. At the moment, they're doing a bit more of a lifestyle format. I think they really need to just stick to the hard hitting news, the topics that really peeve people off, really trigger the audience, and they can really activate that talkback listener in the Brisbane market because that is a really. I remember back in the day, back in the 4KQ days, it was 4BH that were achieving the threes, the fours, the fives. Now it's 4BC. Their tenant, the what that they're leasing to Ace Radio, 4BH is doing so well in Brisbane, but the main station, I mean, that how do you sell that? How do you go to market with those results? So I really hope Tapped Media are truly committed to not network 4BC. I know that's the temptation. Don't network, don't make it 2BC, please. Keep it 4BC. But just really get on top of it. And whether that means some changes to programming or even if you keep the same lineup, just tweak the content and be a bit more hard hitting, then that could really fix it. But yeah, definitely look for B105. Congrats to them. They keep just getting above there. The other thing also with Brisbane, just quickly, Nova Brisbane. Remember, was it 2, 3 surveys ago? We thought that's it. Oh my goodness, they've made a mistake. So that is a hard-working team at Nova Brisbane. Credit to everybody there. They have bounced back. They're back in the mix, and they mean business.
Absolutely. And I just think going back to 4BC quickly, they were at Laurel Gay Mark. That was a look, they rose up quickly and then people realized after 9 a.m. it wasn't any more music, it was just more talk. So they switched over to 4BH and then they chopped and changed quickly. They went over to Peter Fegan and he was there for about a year and then now they're on what is it, Dean and Sophie for breakfast, I'm pretty sure.
Local talent. I think that they've done well getting that talent. I just feel that it could be the content. They just need to be, yeah. I don't think the lighter lifestyle works in Brisbane. I think, if you can really get on top of the state government, the local government issues, that's really where I think 4BC needs to be.
And wasn't it like talking lifestyle back in the day?
Yeah, 4BH was the one that copped all the blows. They were Magic 4BH. They became Magic. Then they were talking lifestyle. Then Macquarie Sports Radio, and now look at 4BH. So you can't blame. But they did a frequency swap a few years ago as well. But you can't blame that. It's an absolute credit. And I would be spitting chips if I was at Tapped Media, thinking, my goodness, Barbecue Bob's doing it from his living room, and look at the results he's getting. We've got a full blown studio and I'm sure at Cannon Hill, they've probably still got studios there for 4BH when they used to be there. Uh, they've got all this facility, all this infrastructure, and this is what they're getting in return. So something's got to be done there. They can't just keep dwindling away. Look at the drive results of 4BC. It's really sad. 2.6 at drive. That is really, really sad to see that. I think it's the lowest. It is. It's the lowest commercial. No, no, sorry. SEN. Can't forget good old SEN. SEMQ's at 1.2. So yeah, you can't be going down to that level. They've got to make some changes.
Absolutely, but I still think it's yeah, absolutely concerning, but they're only just trailing a fair bit ahead, but just only trailing in front of SCNQ, which since it's swapped from 4KQ, it hasn't had the best of results either.
We'll see what happens there. Interesting market, Brisbane. But in terms of what you're saying at the start, the Triple M bounce around, wouldn't be too worried. You watch, it'll bounce back.
Absolutely. I'm looking over to Adelaide. What do you think of the market in Adelaide?
I believe my fix for Adelaide is Kiss 1023 needs Nova's breakfast. that would fix the Kiss results. It was still a great day for Kiss 1023, but I think they could really do a lot better had they had the right demographic of breakfast show. So Ben and Liam, yeah. So Ben and Liam in Adelaide, I believe that the solution for Adelaide would be to get the Nova breakfast on Kiss 102.3, because Ben and Liam, as great as they are, I do believe they're a bit of an outlier with that format on the music format on Kiss Adelaide. So I think, yeah, and look at the Nova breakfast results as well. It's slightly stronger than Kiss. So, I think that that could be a fix there. My view on Adelaide, well done to 5AA, climbing a lot there. But SAFM, they've still got a lot of work, kind of like the 4BC. What is it that SAFM needs to do? It's probably just a bit too cluttered with Nova doing so well, with Kiss doing so well. See, in other markets, you don't really have that clutter of the the SCA, the Nova, and the ARN stations all doing well. But in Adelaide, you do. So someone's got to lose out. So SAFM unfortunately loses in that market.
Absolutely, yeah. I think just Adelaide's an interesting one. We saw Ben and Liam. Look, I just got to note the change in brekkie shows. Actually, I want to ask you this: do you think the change in brekkie shows for what was Mix 102.3 has really affected it? They went from Ali Clark to Max and Ali to what was it, Haley and Max to then Ben and Liam, all in the span of what, 4 years?
I'm going to get some people offside for this, but my view on Adelaide radio, commercial radio, is they've only got the same, 10 talent to choose from. It's so predictable that at the end of each year, who's going to be where, the mixed one's going, or the Kiss one's going to Nova, Nova's going to Kiss, the SAFM's going to Nova. It's just the same musical chairs every year, and it's been like that for the last 5, 6 years in Adelaide. So Triple M Adelaide are the only ones who have stuck with their guns, and they haven't given in to just getting people from across the road to come jump ship. So that's why Triple M Adelaide's doing so well. But I think, yeah, that the chopping and changing of breakfast shows, it's just meaning that the audience is just going back to another station to get that breakfast show. Rarely does a breakfast show actually completely leave the Adelaide market.
Absolutely. And looking over at Perth finally, well, I think this is probably Nova and ARN's book, Gold 96 FM, showing some nice gains. I know it's been a tough year for them, and also Nova is doing pretty well there. What do you think?
Nova in Perth is phenomenal. I don't know. I still don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing that's making it so well. I know they've still got their issues with their breakfast show, but absolute credit there. They are extremely well. Similar to the Melbourne results. Look at breakfast. They're getting a 19 share on an FM station in Perth. Their nearest competitor is 9 points, or was it 7 points behind or something. So really, really well done to the guys at Nova in Perth. Phenomenal job there. I think definitely, look, with Gold, they jump around a bit as well, but really good to see Gold Mornings do well. They had the biggest climb at 2.4 increase there. Triple M Perth, hang in there. Just keep hanging in there. Very strong breakfast results for Triple M Perth, which is great. And I've got a soft spot for Mix 94.5. I'm of the era where I remember Mix was always number one, 100 surveys in a row. And I really want to see Mix get back up there and have another 100 surveys at number one. So I know they can do it. I know they're on the right track. They're still slightly in recovery mode from being hitified. They need to continue the dehitification. They need to keep going down that variety path, be hyper local, try and separate Mix as much from the hit network as possible, and just run your own race. And I'd love to see Mix be on top at some point soon. But look, in terms of the gold rebrand to Perth, clearly had no impact whatsoever. People don't care if it's Gold 96 FM, if it's 96 FM. If they just completely dropped the 96 FM, which I believe they will at some point, I think it'll just be Gold 96. That may have an impact with some who are just so attached to that 45-year-old brand. It's a very strong brand in Perth. So I hope ARN don't completely drop that given the recent results we've seen for Gold, but well done to them. So not too bad in Perth for ARN, but other markets for ARN, I wish it was better for them.
Absolutely. And DAB, of course, the same as usual. K to number one.
Yeah. Of course, of course. Haven't even looked at it.
Yeah, we can always predict DAB. It's K to number one, and what would be usually Coles Radio, iHeart Country Australia trotting behind. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? If Cater's number one on digital, why aren't ARN throwing more programming resource towards it? You know, you've got your DJ mixes, you've got a brekkie and a drive show, but why not throw a bit more talent there? If they're doing so well on digital, how hard is it to use some of the iHeart resources? Get some of those announcers to come across and do a shift or so on Cater. Mix it with a few songs in between. I'd love to see a bit more programming done on Cater. Clearly, they've got the music right, but don't offend those music listeners. They obviously are number one on DAB for a reason because their music positioning. But throw in a bit of color, a bit of lifelessness to it. It'd be great.
Absolutely. I think ever since the switch from the Edge to Cater, I think it had a tiny, like, in terms of on-air programming, they threw everything into it. They had so many different shows, and then now we're going from Jake for breakfast, and you got K Sarah in the afternoon. So it's sad to see a station that when they were on the Edge, they were stacked. They had Mikey and Emma for brekkie, I think Nat
Yeah.
for work days or something like that. Um, it was great back when it was the Edge, and
And that was essentially on the back of an oily rag. You know, they really, it was producers doing shifts, and the Brecky Show were very hands on in supplying content, coming up with content ideas. So it was real, and they were a powerhouse back in the day. You know, I remember hearing feedback at other stations that they'd be thinking, "What's the Edge doing? Make sure we're doing something else," or to get up on them. They were always that dark horse in the Sydney market. Essentially what Cater has become is the Edge minus the announcers. The music has pretty much gone back to what it was. So I think you could easily just throw in a duo at Brecky. It'd be a great breeding ground for future Kiss talent around the country, or ARN. You know, get one of the ARN regional Brecky shows. Throw them at Kiss at Cater Brecky. I think that's an excellent opportunity to try and keep that station pumping, because clearly the music's fine, and you know whatever's happening at Brecky, throw a bit more content in there.
absolutely. I just think Cater is either you get it or you don't, because I think they are
Yeah,
in a for many focused on many other markets, and rightly so. They definitely should be looking at some of their results today.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, look, in terms of winners and losers in a nutshell for me, I think the winner in today's book is Nova, or Nova Entertainment. You know, let's not forget Smooth in Sydney. Absolutely well done to them. And I think that the real loser here today is obviously Kiss and or ARM. And we knew that was coming. And mark my words, next survey, it will not be 6.6. It'll be even less for Kiss Sydney, unless they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, and they launch right now, literally starting tomorrow with a strong permanent Brecky show. I mean, it's in the answer is in, just look at the lineup. That Paul Mikey, he's a gun. I love that bloke, but he's been thrown a revolving door of guests. The listeners don't know who they're going to wake up to. Their favorite show's been thrown out. So not only do they not know who's doing Brecky, but they don't know who's doing the co-hosting with Mikey. They're still trying to readjust to Mikey, and now they're getting thrown every fortnight someone new. Why couldn't why couldn't they stick with Amy Gerard? Why do I thought she was contracted with ARN? What, they can't keep her for another 3-4 weeks? Now that Kyle and Jack Kyle has been settled, surely that establishes the fact that there is no risk at all of Kyle or Jackie O returning to Kiss 1065 Breakfast. So if I was programming at ARN, I think they should really just look hard now and bring out the magic now. Who's going to be that next permanent 1065 breakfast show? Who's going to be the 1011 Melbourne breakfast show? Start now, because the clock has been ticking for a very long time. So the listeners are clearly jumping. And now ARN are at the point where the competition are running aggressive campaigns, like I said at the start, with Today FM doing Flick the Switch. So it's everyone's going in for a piece of the Kiss audience. ARN needs to throw their bit at it to hang on and to rebuild what they are losing every day of the week.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Is there any other pieces of news that have recently come up that you want to chat about? Anything to do with Kyle and his new mini docu-series or anything like that?
I just want to say Kyle is a genius. If not Kyle, if it's his team, I have a feeling it could be someone behind the scenes. But what a genius approach. When you get thrown out the door and your contract is terminated, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Oh, my life is ruined. Oh, how am I going to pay the bills out of that? And someone in the Kyle camp put their hand up and go, hey, 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 why don't we do this? Why don't we start recording it? Because you never know what's going to happen. So the moral of the lesson from this six-part series, docu-series that we're going to see with Kyle is when, don't mind me saying, when shit hits the fan, you get creative. And that's what Kyle has done. And Kyle is going to have the last laugh here. I think this is a genius move. He's not only going to take his audience with him as a breakfast show, which we were all thinking, oh my God, that's huge. But now he's throwing this last little curveball saying, hey, by the way, we've documented everything that's been going on. I think it's a great, it reestablishes the brain behind Kyle. He is all about generating killer content, and when push comes to shove, the guy can still deliver.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I can't wait for Carl Sanderland's live. I can't wait to see what that looks like and if we get some sort of listener number indication. But yeah, after chatting to a lot of people, I'm still sort of mixed about their subscription based service.
Mm. You know what's going to happen? I believe that once the Kyle, I was going to say Kyle and Jack, once the Kyle podcast kicks off and Kyle Sanderland's live, the platform takes off, the way that we'll be looking at the radio market and the numbers will probably have to include a share of that. There's always going to be those people out there going, oh, but hang on, the numbers have gone down because they've gone over to Kyle. I don't think we should ignore Kyle's numbers moving forward. Once he does launch his daily show, you're exactly right. I think we do need to monitor those numbers and we do need to factor them into the GFK results because they are going to have a huge impact on that 6.6 figure that we see at KISS 1065. They are just hanging in there, waiting to switch off radio completely so they can connect their Apple CarPlay to listen to Kyle instead. So just stand by, but do not ignore Kyle's figures day in, day out. Moving forward, as soon as he launches, factor that in.
I think it's a great opportunity as well. He's got Alfie with him. I think Pedro's even working with him as well,
Yeah.
and they've got Alfie, Hulk, and I'm sure there's different other producers that got axed from Kiss, and I think it's great that he's rescued that team and he's bringing them back to life in this new show.
Yeah. And as for the KISS breakfast team, the sad thing is your support cast cannot hold the fort. That's fact. Absolute fact. And I think today's the day that ARN have realized that you do need your star talent there for the show to succeed.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, that wraps up this episode of Biz Audio. Big thank you to Peter Samios. You can check out Radio Mastery at radiomastery.com.au. And Peter, we'll see you for Survey 5.
Look forward to it.